Good day, everyone. This is the project Vedic Detox, and I'm its host, Mariya Grylyuk. Today we have our honorable guest, Gerrit Jan Gerritsma, and he is the Ayurveda practitioner from 1989 and as well the TM teacher from 2012. He has the Ayurvedic center here in Ladistad, and maybe also you can say a few words about yourself, whatever you want to add.
Thank you, Mariya, for inviting me. It's always nice to share my experiences with Ayurveda. And yes, I've worked in the past with the Indian doctors, with the Vaidyas, from whom I learned a lot. And I have my practice here in Ladistad since 2004. And together with the practice, we have the Maharishi Ayurveda Health Center, where we give treatments, oil treatments, detox treatments, Panchakarma.
Beautiful. Yeah. Thank you. And today's topic will be about the seasonal depressions and how to prevent them. So maybe you can also share with us what is the depression itself, yes? And how we can define it from the modern perspective and from the Ayurvedic perspective.
Yes. Yeah, from modern perspective, we can explain depression as a combination of factors. Some things are hereditary, they come from the family, and they're partly in the DNA. But it's also psychological factors, of course. If you don't learn how to cope with problems properly, then you become frustrated and down. And also, more recently, modern medicine has imbibed more lifestyle factors. Then they promote an active lifestyle for depressed people and a kind of regularity in the routine. And in this respect, modern medicine and Ayurveda are growing together. And so of course, the modern medicine, you also consider the neurotransmitters and like serotonin and the stress hormones and melatonin and these things. Melatonin has to do with the biorhythm, and the stress hormones with how good you can relax also, and serotonin, how happy you feel. And this can be also by stress, they can be dysregulated. That's from the modern medicine perspective. And from the Ayurvedic perspective, we can say depression is Kapha Vata imbalance. So we can see from the perspective of the three doshas, Kapha, Pitta, Vata. And Kapha, if Kapha is in balance, or well balanced, you have patience, you have strength, you have you may be a bit slow, but you're very reliable. But if Kapha is too much, you become too slow. You become heavy and no energy, and like heavy and down, depressed. That is typically Kapha. But the Vata aspect is also always there. Vata is the air and movement principle, and that has to do with many thoughts.
Okay.
So depressed people can have many thoughts. And that is the Vata aspect. And the Pitta, which is the energy, usually is less involved in depression. But if someone has a lot of fire and likes to work a lot, then he or she can work too much, and then it's a kind of burnout kind of depression. That's the Pitta aspect of it.
And as we go into the spring, yes, as we change in the shift in the season, how actually this transition from Vata dosha to Kapha dosha is going?
Yeah, that's a good point, because in the transition, that's always a delicate point, and you tend to be out of balance. And in the seasons, the winter season is more Vata. Why is it more Vata? because it's cold and dry, or cold and windy. Kapha is also a cold dosha, but it's not cold and dry, it's cold and moist. So if the weather becomes a bit more warm, then it's more Kapha weather. And then also in our body and mind, the Kapha is increasing. That means, so many people experience that as the tiredness in the spring.
Yeah.
And so there's a clear connection between the weather and also how people feel. And it's also the light, of course.
Yeah.
If the light is less, then also the mood is a bit more dark somehow. And especially if you feel not so much energy and you want to be rested in the morning, you sleep a little bit longer, but then you sleep into the Kapha time, because the morning from 6 to 10 is Kapha time. If you do something which is increasing Kapha during the Kapha time, then you get too much of Kapha and you get too heavy.
So you create an imbalance, actually.
Right. Yeah. And then also kind of dullness and kind of heaviness and depressed mood can also be caused by getting up late. But if you also go to bed late, then you create Vata Pitta imbalance. That means too many thoughts, and Pitta means kind of irritability. So that's why also in modern medicine and also in Ayurveda, the recommendation is to live regularly, but not too late. Go to bed early and wake up early. And if I can give a recommendation already,
yeah, sure,
to balance the Kapha Vata, which is too much in depression, it's good to go for a walk in the early morning, because the walking is alleviating the Kapha, alleviating the heaviness. And if it is too dark in the morning, you can have the help from the daylight lamp. Daylight lamp, which with the sunlight frequency, it helps to shift the biorhythm to a bit earlier. Then you become tired a little earlier. It's easier to go to bed early, and it's also easier to wake up early.
And you know that now we are more like overloaded and overstimulated actually during our activity. And of course we have screens and all the things. So how we also can maybe prevent that? Of course it's easier to maybe stop watching them before a few hours before you go to bed. But maybe you have any suggestions how we can prevent these depressions which caused by this overload and seasonal shifts and the heaviness of our, let's say, informatical...
Yeah, the overload of impressions to the eyes and to the mind. So we can do many things. So yeah, what you say, it's good to, in the evening, a few hours before going to bed, let's say from 8 o'clock even, have no screen work. And because the blue light from the screen is also is stimulating the brain so that you don't become sleepy. And then in the evening, it's better to not to go to bed too late. So that is something to avoid. Also very important is to select what you watch and what you have your attention on. Because if you have your attention always on problems and what is going wrong in society, and there's a lot going wrong, everyone knows, but if you have your attention on it all the time, it's not contributing to the solution. And it can also create sort of thought circles, and that is not contributing to a good balance. So have also your attention on things that are desirable, to have a good balance and good health and creativity and good sharing with others like that.
Okay, beautiful. Thank you. And some of the people, they feel this like a beginning of the new energy, of the spring energy, yes, and feel even more energetic, but some of them feel alongside as well, more like less low mood, yes, or motivated, let's say.
Right.
So maybe Ayurveda also can help with that, how to actually balance this new energy, yes, with the low mood because of this transition from the winter time.
Yeah, it's good that you have the right energy in the right place,
Mm-hmm.
and that also everything is well connected, well balanced
Mm-hmm.
to each other. And there you get the aspect of clear brain functioning. So if this part of the brain is very active and that part of the brain is very active, but they don't work together, then you have a lot of energy, but it is not really creative.
Mm-hmm.
So in that case, what helps very much is also is meditation, and the Transcendental Meditation, which is very easy and very effective in settling down the mind, and it gives clarity of thinking, and this part of the brain is connected more with that part of the brain, and they work more together. You see it in the brain waves, that the brain wave of this point is much more in harmony with that point, that you call coherence, and you feel that with more inner clarity, and then you can feel more energy, but the energy is at the same time with clarity, so you can direct, you can better feel what you need and better plan for fulfillment of what you need. So you're more creative, and then you're more happy, and there's less problems. Yes. So that is a very good point to balance the two. And this meditation, Transcendental Meditation, is also mentioned in the classical Ayurvedic text. They call it, like transcending, they call Samadhi. And that is exactly what you reach when you do Transcendental Meditation.
And can you reach Samadhi from, let's say, first your personal instruction, or do you need to have a long time to reach it, or how it depends on what it depends?
That's a very good point. So the experience and also the EEG measurements, they show that you don't have to meditate a long time to reach this silent awareness, this restful alertness, which is Samadhi. Many people have it already in the first meditation. And so what the scientists were expecting, that someone who's meditating 20 years has a different EEG from one who's just starting. But the EEG during meditation is not so much different. And to the surprise of the scientists, even if you meditate just a few days, you can reach this very deep rest and this very high coherence between left and right. And the big difference between someone who's meditating a long time and somebody who's just started is not so much during meditation, but after meditation. So we meditate not only for the 20 minutes morning and 20 minutes evening, but we meditate mostly for the results in daily life. And the longer you meditate, the better you are able to maintain this restful alertness also outside of meditation. So you start to function better outside of meditation.
So that's actually how we can use it in our topic, yes, in this seasonal, let's say, depressions, that after the meditation, the person can feel much more easier and have the better mood and has more light in the body, and I think, of course, it will help a lot.
Exactly, that
Yes.
is how you feel. And it's also objectivated. That means but the hormones are also more in balance. That means the stress hormones, like cortisol, is much lower during meditation, also lower during the day compared to those who don't meditate. But if you need it, then the cortisol is there.
Okay.
So it's not a situation that you feel just sedated or weak, but the cortisol is there when it's needed, but when it's not needed, it's not there. And also the serotonin is going up, and that is corresponding to that people feel more happiness.
That was actually my next question. What about this mood-related hormones like serotonin, melatonin, and dopamine? Do we see any like increases during the transcendental or after transcendental meditation?
Yeah, right. People meditate regularly. They have higher dopamine and higher serotonin levels. And melatonin, I don't know, but it is. We can see that the sleep is better regulated in people who do TM, and stress hormones are lower. Yeah, there's studies that show that these hormones are better in meditators, especially, and that's correlated, of course, with how people report they feel more happy. And in some people, it's really very high. The people who meditate a bit longer, they have more happiness. And but it also has shown that TM helps in depression. There's 5 studies where there's a clear effect proven that transcendental meditation helps in alleviating depression.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you. And how we can maybe have any adjustments from Ayurveda for our daily lifestyle to have better mood, to have less fatigue, etc.
That's a good point. So from a lifestyle, so we have to balance mainly Kapha and Vata. And Kapha can accumulate when you eat a lot, especially in the evening. So what many of us are doing, we have the main meal in the evening, and then after the evening meal, we start to snack, and like nuts or cheese in front of the TV. And that is one of the biggest mistakes that many people have. And because after dinner, our digestive system is so busy, all the enzymes are busy, and in the evening, from the biorhythm, the pitta energy, the digestive energy, is lower. So it doesn't get digested, and then it stays off, the undigested food stays overnight in the gut, and which gives rise to wrong bacteria, to gases, and to half-digested food. And this half-digested food is also absorbed in the body, and that gives in the morning a very heavy feeling and maybe some stiffness or pain, and also a low mood. So what not to do is eat a heavy meal in the evening, and what not to do is don't eat anything after dinner. You can drink tea or hot water and like the light drinks, but no drinks with any calories, because it doesn't get digested well. So have a light dinner, some soup, and if possible, have your main meal at midday in the lunchtime. That would be ideal. But if you can, of course, eat a warm meal in the evening, but better not too late, better so between 6 and 7, and better not after 7:30, 8 o'clock, because then it doesn't get digested well. So that's one thing.
Yeah.
So a light dinner, and then you will sleep better, and then you're rested more in the morning, and then you can wake up early, and if it is dark, like in the winter, you can have for some minutes a daylight lamp with bright light, and which is enlivening the brain so that you become more lively and less heavy and more creative. And then the best thing is also to go for a walk in the early morning. And of course, then you can, if you like, you can do the yoga and then Transcendental Meditation, and then have your breakfast, and then you do your daily activities. That's a very good routine.
Thank you. And if we want to make an Ayurvedic treatments, recommended to have it during this transition or maybe afterwards. So what is the best, let's say, timing for the treatments?
So Ayurvedic treatments at home or maybe
in the center?
In the center. Yeah. Well, we always tune in the treatments to the person. So if the person has a bit more Vata, then the oil massage, the Abhyanga, is really good. Or if the person has a lot of thoughts, then the Shirodhara, or the pouring of oil over the forehead, is really good. If the person has more Kapha, which is a bit slower digestion and maybe some more weight, then I would give more stimulating treatments like the peeling, Udvartana we call it, or even a treatment with stamps. We have that is a bodhikiri, which is warming, stimulating, and alleviating the heaviness.
So basically, it doesn't depend much on the seasons or more individually, yes?
Well, the spring is a really good time for detox. That's a good point. So Ayurveda says when the snow starts melting, something similar happens in the body, like the toxins which are a bit more frozen in the body. If the temperature becomes a bit higher, they start to melt and they start to spread in the body, and this can give kind of heaviness, but it's also an opportunity to get rid of them. And then you can help that natural detoxification process by what we call Panchakarma. And so first, what you do is you shouldn't do it by your own, because it has to be well tailored to your individual needs. But the general principle is to take some ghee in the morning instead of breakfast, and this is the toxins which are more sticking. It is soaking them and softening them so that they can go out of the tissues. And then the next step is an oil massage, either in our center or you do it at home. And then this is moving the toxins. And then it's followed by a steam bath. So the warmth is increasing the circulation in the tissues, and then the blood can take the toxins out of the tissues. But then they're still in the body, but they're out of the tissues. But if to take them out of the body, you do something to clean the intestines, like mild laxation, or you do some enemas, basti enema. That means a cleaning of the large intestine.
Beautiful.
That's what we do.
Yes,
and it's really effective in removing toxins, and it is also measured that even toxins from the environment, like rests of pesticides, are eliminated.
That's definitely what we need to do for our body to help to detoxify it, yes, and have the better health and better mood with this.
It's the best prevention, because all these toxins, if they accumulate over the years, then they affect the brain and the memory and all the immunity. So it's better to get rid of them before you get complaints.
Yeah, thank you. And do we have any scientific researches on TM and maybe another comparison with another technique like different relaxation techniques or mindfulness technique, comparing with the hormones like stress hormones. Yes.
So, what comes into my mind now, the thing which is measured, in which TM is really unique, is the coherence.
Mm.
And coherence, that means the togetherness of the brain waves, and this is a measurement a measure for better collaboration of the different parts of the brain, and which gives more creativity. And in the Transcendental Meditation, that really the coherence goes to higher than 95%. So it goes from 0 to 100%, and the average coherence of a grown-up person is around 30, maybe maximum 40%. And during meditation, already during first meditations, it goes up to over 95%, the normal brain waves. And people who meditate longer, they also have a high coherence, mainly of the alpha waves, also outside of meditation. And that is an indication of more efficient brain function and more creativity. And in that respect, also that means that also the stress hormones are lower. And I don't know of any comparative research about stress hormones in TM and other techniques. I know that Transcendental Meditation is compared to other techniques with respect to anxiety. Mm-hmm. And that is a study done by a non-meditating scientist. And he found that TM is twice more effective at the second best in reducing anxiety.
Yeah, beautiful. That's a very good result. Thank you. And if we speak about the Ayurvedic perspective in the modern medicine, what are the most challenges to have everyone using Ayurveda in the clinics, in the modern clinics? Maybe you can share.
Yeah, I think it's mostly a matter of that it is known to the people. Mm-hmm. And if the people know, it works, it has no side effects, and I can work on the cause of the disease, then it will be much more used also in the official institutions. And you see, especially with the younger doctors, that there's more interest in lifestyle. There's in Holland, there's the Vereniging Arts en Leefstijl, so Doctors Association for Lifestyle Medicine, and they're giving more attention to lifestyle factors, and in many diseases they start with lifestyle recommendations, and this is already Ayurveda. Yeah. I mean, it is not called like that, but it is lifestyle recommendations are mentioned also in Ayurvedic texts. So, so I think it's a matter of sharing the experiences and the knowledge.
And maybe the final inspiration from you in this transition from the winter to spring.
So I think the combined effect of the detox, the Panchakarma detox, is very good to do in the spring. And I remember now some people who are doing Panchakarma for the first time, and they used to have a flu once or twice a year. After the first Panchakarma, they did not have any flu anymore. So now they're repeating the Panchakarma every year. And this combined with some lifestyle recommendations, like what you say, the main meal for lunch, and dinner light, and sport, and according to your type, and regular meditation, it can transform your life to a much higher level. So that you can prevent being sick, and you feel much more happy also. But according to Ayurveda, happiness and bliss is a sign of normal health. So it's not merely the absence of disease, but it's that you feel happy during the day, and even that you can enjoy the silence of the sleep.
Beautiful.
That
yeah.
is,
So basically, it's not what we want to have, like a one pill, yes, and solve all the problems, but it is the daily routine. So very structured and good daily routine.
Daily routine,
yeah.
right. Yeah, that is very good to maintain a good balance, right.
Yeah. Okay, great. Thank you so much for being with us. Thank you for sharing the knowledge, and for all the knowledge we as well say all the gratitude to Maharishi and Gurudev. Jai Gurudev.
Jai Gurudev.